listening to LSU Daily with Matt Musso, your home for all things LSU sports.
Off and running here on another edition of LSU Daily. Welcome in. Glad to have you with me here today. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. It's greatly appreciated. Follow me on social media as well, at Musso Matthew on Twitter X. You can find me on Facebook, on Instagram, at Matthew Musso1. All of that greatly, greatly appreciated. Fun show to dive into today. So we've wrapped up media availability opportunities with Brian Kelly for the bye week. He spoke after practice on Tuesday. We played you a little bit of that on a previous show. We'll dive back into some of that again today. And then he was on the SEC Coaches Teleconference on Wednesday. We'll dive into a little bit of that because there was some news. But that's it for BK the rest of the week. We will not hear from him again until Monday of game week versus Ole Miss for his weekly noon press conference there. But, like I said, there are plenty of talking points. So what we've mentioned plenty is that LSU is treating this as a work week, right? This isn't their recovery bye because they have two. They're going to use the second one before Alabama as really the recovery bye, as how Brian Kelly has termed it. They're working on development here, and one of the big spots is safety. We did a whole show earlier in the week about safety and who the best guys are and what the configuration probably looks like when they take the field against Ole Miss on October the 12th. Well, there's a little bit of a shakeup there, a potential shakeup there, again, that Brian Kelly mentioned, so want to dive into that. And then while we've all been so hyper-focused on the run game and stopping the run and the safety position, there's one group that has underperformed the first 2 years of Brian Kelly that is exceeding expectations right now, and that is the specialists. And I want to talk about that because Brian Kelly gave a very long, detailed answer about the improvements made on special teams when he met with the media on Tuesday. So I want to double back and play that for you. So that's what we're going to do here today. Glad to have you with me, as I said, and let's dive right in, and we'll start with the safety position again. Brian Kelly on the SEC Coaches Teleconference on Wednesday was asked about Javien Toviano. And Toviano's been a really interesting guy so far in his second season now at LSU. Came in very highly touted out of the state of Texas. A guy that could play all over the defense as a DB, five-star guy, and LSU has really used him in that way so far. As a freshman in 2023, they moved him everywhere throughout camp. Corner, safety, nickel, he played them all. And then down the stretch of the 2023 season, when you had injuries in your secondary and you were just so bad that you were looking for anything, they turned to the freshman. And Toviano got a lot of run at cornerback at the end of last season. Started the last 4 games, was able to maintain his red shirt, but you got to see him on the field, and there were flashes. You fast forward here into 2024, and it's sort of the same thing. They're moving him all over the football field. Whether it's corner, nickel, safety, star, they've played him everywhere once again. And Brian Kelly, the way it was asked was, hey, what have you seen in the development of Javien Toviano? And he took it really a different way.
We really like Javien Toviano. It's just finding the role for him. We've bounced him around, as you know, quite a bit. He does a lot of things really well for us. We just now have to accent those. And I think what really needs to happen for us, and we've had this discussion, matter of fact, this week, is that we need to settle him into a particular position, and that's it. He's going to play the star position, and we expect him to stay there the rest of the year.
So there you go. Hey, what's next in his development? And Brian Kelly takes it to a place of, well, we like what he does. Bounce him around a lot, like we just said, but we need to stick him in one spot, and it's going to be the star. Okay, agreed. Stick him in one spot, especially if you want the development to actually progress. It's hard to develop when you're being moved around at 3-4 different spots on the defense, when you're just being asked to do so many different things. But it's also hard with a guy like that who is capable of doing a lot of different things. A guy who can help you in that many facets of the game and that many structures of your defense. That's a great asset to have, but at the same time, you have to be able to maximize what he does best. That's what they're looking for here. Now, so you'll move him to star. He'll stay there for the rest of the season per Brian Kelly. The interesting thing is star should immediately perk your ears, right? That should immediately grab your attention. Because coming into the season, Major Burns was going to play your star. And Harold Perkins was going to be inside. Well, we know how that worked. Harold Perkins then moved outside to that star, the Sam, whatever you really want to call it, in that kind of role, in that same vein of that role. And that allowed you to move Major Burns to safety. Well, then Harold Perkins get injured. Okay, you see them go back to that 4-2-5 exclusively and move Major Burns back down to star. And now you're hearing Javien Toviano star. So that's why that should just immediately, grab your attention. And Brian Kelly, at the end of that answer, talked about why they make this decision and what Toviano at star brings to the defense.
And it allows us now some flexibility where, we can move Major Burns back to safety if we need some help back at the safety position, because we really believe he's really good, Toviano, closer to the ball in the line of scrimmage because he's such a short tackler and he's assignment correct.
So there's a few things here with that. Number one, what Brian Kelly's telling you there is if they need help at safety. This isn't a move to immediately move Major Burns back to safety. This is if they need help at safety. But you can also take that as him saying, we might need help at safety still, even though they've been trying to find their guys this week that they know can play back there for them. And I went through it on a previous show, y'all. I think it's Sage Ryan, Deshaun Spears, and Major Burns is who they run out there to start. Spears and Sage Ryan deep, Burns at the star. That's what I think the configuration is come Ole Miss. Could it be Jordan Gilbert back there? Sure. My whole thing was, just to kind of condense the long talk we had earlier in the week, Brian Kelly is going on record saying they like the idea of the combination of a vet and a young guy back there. So when you look at Sage Ryan and Deshaun Spears, they've been their most productive. They've been the two guys they've put on the field most in those spots. But there's no substitute for experience, and Jordan Gilbert has a lot of experience in this league playing safety. So you could very well see that. But Major Burns' best position for you has been star. But for him to say, if we need help at safety, tells you that even though they're going through this week trying to figure that out, it sounds like they're still pretty unsettled. And they still have time. And this is one of those, a fail-safe, I guess, if you will, to do that. However, I don't think it would put your defense in a very good spot. And it's not a knock on Toviano. Toviano is very capable of playing star. You heard Brian Kelly tell you why. He's a sure tackler. He's assignment correct. That stands out in the numbers. When you go look at some PFF grades on Javien Toviano, his highest graded skill is tackling. And it's really not close. Like everything else, little lower than that. It stands out. So yes, playing him down to the line makes a lot of sense. Now, the thing there is, he's only played in 3 games this year. He's only played 21 snaps. So it's a small sample. But yeah, the tackling stands out above the rest. And in the same vein, Major Burns is not a cover guy. He just isn't. You talk about a guy whose highest grade is on tackling, that's Major Burns. My goodness. Major Burns grades out 70.8 tackle, 55.3 in coverage. Tackling's his highest, coverage is his lowest. So, for that reason, I think what Brian Kelly is telling you there is, okay, this is an if necessary move, but it serves 2 purposes where it gives you another veteran guy who's played a lot of football at the back end of your defense if you had to make that move in Major Burns, even though probably wouldn't be for the betterment of the unit as a whole. And it also gets Javien Toviano in a spot where he can sit there, play, focus, and develop there. And it's a spot that maximizes the best part of his game. So in totality, the whole thing makes a lot of sense. In the, micro, you do have to wonder if it's a deeper tell on where they are on the safety position, even after they've spent a large bulk of this week working it and repping it and trying to find the right combination. Only time will tell. It's like we said at the end of the larger safety conversation. All of this is just thoughts that we're throwing out there right now. They got to have 7 more games to play. The answers will play out in front of us. So only time will tell. All right. Let's switch gears here and talk about the special teams. Because LSU's defense in 2023 was obviously the most maligned group on the team, maybe in the country. But when you throw the 2-year sample of special teams and wrap it into one, it's pretty darn close. Special teams had been awful at LSU the first 2 years of Brian Kelly. Awful. And it was noticeable for 2 reasons. 1, it was that bad. 2, special teams have never been a problem at LSU. They've always been very, very good on special teams. So the mistakes were magnified even more because none of us here are used to seeing them. And I don't really want to go through all of them because it would take a while, and I try to keep these things to about 20 minutes. But you remember 2022. 2022, starting in that Florida State game, it started a trend where you were just waiting for the mistake on special teams every week. You had the 2 blocked kicks and the 2 muffed punts against Florida State. You muffed the opening kickoff against Tennessee. You muffed a kickoff against Florida that put them into great position. It was week after week after week after week. You were literally waiting for it. You had no semblance of a punt return game. It was bad. 2023, Bob Diaco comes in. Against Florida State in the opener, you muff another punt, and from there, it was just, okay, Gregory Clayton, go back there, it's you, fair catching, and it worked out because your offense was the second best offense in the history of the program, and they were prolific and drew so many comparisons to 2019, it was ridiculous and euphoric at the same time. But it took away a part of your game. But you did see some improvement in 2023. You still had Jay Bramblett. You still had, even though you didn't need to use him very much, and you still had Damian Ramos. So really the focus was on the return game last year, and where was it? Brian Kelly was asked Tuesday after practice about the improvements on special teams. And he gave a pretty long, detailed answer. I'll play the whole thing for you. It's about 50 seconds. He went through each phase, and then I have a few things to add on each phase as well. So here's Brian Kelly, the improvement on special teams.
Up until this point last year, we had 12 returns for 272 yards. I think we've got 2 for something like 30 yards. I mean, that's a huge difference in field position. In terms of kickoff and kickoff coverage, we've hit virtually every ball out of the back of the end zone. So Aaron Burrell's made a huge difference there, right? In terms of punt return, although we haven't hit the big one, we've got a steady guy back there that is a playmaker. So Javien Thomas has made a huge difference. Damian Ramos is like money. Like, that guy is solid. And I think obviously the big thing that we're doing really well is positionally, we're really smart in terms of punts. We either knock it down inside the 10 or, we've been really good at positionally punting. And so I think all in all, special teams have been really good. And, that hidden yardage has come out to help us.
The hidden yardage has absolutely helped LSU. But you talk about Aaron Burrell, who's out there 24 of 25, touchback. That's massive. Okay, go 75 yards each time. The only kick that was returned was the one against USC where you had the 15-yard penalty that was assessed on the kickoff. So, you're kicking deeper. And, oh, by the way, the guy who made the tackle on that play was your kicker, Aaron Burrell. So not only has he put the ball in the end zone 24 out of 25 times, the one time he didn't, he made the stop that saved a touchdown. Yeah, that guy's been really friggin' good for you there. Really good. Javien Thomas, I loved the way Brian Kelly said that, described him. Although he hasn't hit the big one, we've got a guy back there that, is a playmaker. And he's right. And Thomas will hit a big one. Like, it will happen. Javien Thomas is going to find the end zone this year on a punt or a kickoff return for LSU. That's kind of the thing Kelly didn't mention in it as well, is kickoffs. But just taking the punt return. If you go back to 2022, LSU returned 16 punts for 52 yards the entire season. 16 for 52. If you go back to last season, LSU returned 7 for 74 all season. And again, yes, you have the caveat of a historic, prolific offense. 16 for 52, 7 for 74. This season, Javien Thomas in 5 games has already returned 8 for 35. So he's halfway to your total that you had an entire season in 22, and he's already eclipsed your total from last season in just 5 games. And most importantly, hasn't put the ball on the ground. Like, you can look at that and go, it's only a 4.4 average, and yeah, that's not going to jump off the page, but you're getting more returns, and you're securing the catch. I mentioned Kelly didn't talk about kickoffs. In 2023, so last season, your leading guy, kick return-wise, was Caleb Jackson. He had 10 kick returns for 249 yards. 10 over the course of the whole season. Javien Thomas so far this season, 10 kickoff returns already for 242. He's equaled that production in kickoff return from all of last year already this season. So I love the way that Brian Kelly termed that. He described it perfectly. He's a guy that hasn't hit the big one, but you've got a playmaker and a guy that you absolutely trust who catches the ball and can do special things with it in his hands. You've seen it in his career at Mississippi State. The guy was, an All-American returner. And I think he's going to get one at some point this year. And I hope it's in a massive moment. And you have a chance for a lot of massive moments going forward the next 7 games. And I hope it comes in a huge spot to really pay that off. Damian Ramos. This is going to be really short. He's incredible. The guy's been awesome. He has been everything you need him to be as a kicker. Reliable, accurate. Like, he's 5 of 6 this season. He was 12 of 15 a year ago. He's the next in line of a lot of great kickers, field goal kickers at LSU. Like, he just is. So, yeah, Damian Ramos, he's awesome. Keep doing it. Punter's the other thing I found really interesting. Because if you remember back through camp and even spring practice, Brian Kelly rarely had anything nice to say about punter. Like, that was a hot topic. After the spring game, he immediately said Peyton Todd needs to be better. Like, he didn't sugarcoat it at all. This was a chance for him to really take hold of the job, and he didn't. That's basically what Brian Kelly, he's got plenty of talent, needs to be more consistent. It needs to be better. Those are all things he said right after a spring game. And that conversation continued through fall. And you brought in Blake Oxendorf as well. And right before LSU kicked off the season, he was asked about punter again. And he said, if we have to play 2, we'll play 2. And it didn't inspire a whole lot of confidence because you had been so good with Jay Bramlett the last 2 seasons. And the punting has surprisingly been really, really, really effective for LSU. And Brian Kelly mentioned it there at the end of that cut. Peyton Todd has handled the longer punts. Oxendorf has been more of your coffin corner guy. Oxendorf has kicked 4 punts. All 4 of them have been down inside the 20. You can't ask for anything else out of that guy. Peyton Todd, 10 punts. He's averaging over 40 yards a punt with a long of 48. 2 of his 10 have been downed inside the 20. 5 out of the 10 have been fair caught. You can't ask for much more than that. LSU's not going to punt a lot. They're going to score a lot of points. So in the small sample size that you have there, those 2 guys have been really good. LSU has punted 15 times. You have only allowed 4 returns. When you compare that to years past, and you look at Jay Bramblett allowed all of 2 punt returns last season, -1 yard in 2023. In 2022, the numbers are real similar. 17 returns for LSU in total. Allowed, I should say. You've been comparable. You've been comparable so far. And that is, aside from Thomas in the return game, Todd Noschendorf at punter has been incredibly encouraging so far, just about through the first half of this season. So wanted to throw bouquets because that is a division, that is a fraction of this team right there at punter that's outperforming expectation preseason coming in. I think that is fair to say, just because of the conversations that we were having about that position. And kind of the same thing with Javien Thomas, and he'll get one. So a hat tip to LSU special teams. They've been big in the Tigers getting to 4-1 so far this season, not just because of scoring, but also the hidden yardage that Brian Kelly talked about. All right, that's going to wrap it up for today. Y'all smash the like button. Get subscribed. Please, please, please get subscribed. Share. Please share. That helps tremendously as well. And follow me on social media, actually, as well, too. That's greatly appreciated also. And be here next time for more. We'll wrap up the bye week on LSU Daily.